Hello, friends, family, favorite people, loved ones, strangers, everyone in between. Welcome to episode 10 of Unserious University. We did it, you guys. We did 10. I'm throwing it back this time. We're doing solo dolo again. I apologize if some of you guys are really getting used to guests and that's your favorite format. I'm going to disappoint you one more time, but I had a little bit on my mind today, and I also have had a bit of a turbulent time in my life lately, so I didn't really have an opportunity to really nail down a guest, and so fuck it. I've gotten a lot better at speaking to a microphone alone in my room. It's a useless skill, but I've watched myself improve at it over the last few months. So I decided that today I want to talk about relationships and friendship and love and what it means to grow a meaningful bond with people. It's just been on my mind lately, and I love that I get to use this as an opportunity to kind of just flesh this out and hopefully have some people who also see things the way I do hear what I have to say and maybe identify with it or maybe get a good little gold nugget out of it. So thank you so much for being here for 10 episodes. I know it is a small number in the grand scheme of how the internet is. There are other podcasts out there with thousands and thousands of episodes, but we have made it to double digits. So I think that's great. This is my fun little celebration by myself recording this intro in my room. It makes me smile. It makes me happy. So thank you guys so much. We're doing it. We're making it happen. We're making magic. I hope you enjoy this episode. We'll be back next week with more. This is episode 10 of Unserious University, and that's the intro, baby. Catch you later. Bye. So we're winging it today. I kind of have a topic on my mind that I do want to speak on, and I have no idea, quite frankly, where I will be taking this episode, so I'm just going to take you guys along for the ride with me, and we're going to figure it out. But the topic that I kind of want to speak on is friendships, or more broadly, relationships with people, but not necessarily in a romantic sense. I think this is a broad enough brushstroke that it can apply to just anyone that you love. I was chatting it up with Dylan just before this for a little bit, and something that came to mind when we were talking was just the fact that I feel so very lucky for the incredible amount of incredible people that I have in my life. I think anyone who has known me or been able to step into my life for anything longer than a night, but for sometimes that's all it takes, you get to witness how great the people I get to see pretty often are. And for one reason or another, I also feel very lucky in a sense that I will run into and meet and form new relationships with great people. It's not just that I have these great people that I met 10 years ago and I've just stuck with them, although that does apply to a lot of my really close friends. I also have a lot of awesome people that I've met along the way that I still maintain relationships with, that are still so sweet to me, that I still would speak so highly of if others asked. And it kind of made me take a step back and wonder why that is. And I know that there perhaps may be some pretty obvious upfront answers. Maybe as you're listening to this, maybe you have a knee-jerk reaction as to why you think I have a blessed life and why I have good people in my life. But most of the time, as a busy adult, we don't really dive past those knee-jerk reactions. That applies to most things, but I kind of want to do that for today's episode with particularly the relationships that you build in your life. I think it's multifaceted. Particularly, one of the biggest influences on who is in your life is the relationship that you have with yourself if you do not have any self-value or self-worth, then it will be really hard for you to maintain healthy relationships with other people who are seeking healthy relationships. But I don't want to start with that. I actually want to start with something that I think that I try to do and have done in the past that I think helps me maintain these beautiful bonds that I have with people. And to be completely upfront, I actually haven't been as good about this in my recent life of like maybe the last 3-4 years than I used to be. I used to be really good about this, and maybe this will be a bit of a new goal of mine to try to re-implement moving forward, that I do this more. Let's stop speaking so vaguely. I try to do my best to be very openly vulnerable with people that I like them, and that I think that they are amazing. And I see a lot of value in them, even if perhaps where they're at in life, they don't see that value. But I have gone through many phases of different friends. Some of you listening, you've known me for a very long time. Perhaps we were very close at one point, and time and life has just caused us to grow apart. But you and I both know that if we cross paths, we'd pick up right where we left off and things would be beautiful. Some of you listening are recent additions to my life, and we've hit it off, and now we are hanging out all the time, or we're making future plans together, and I cherish you guys very much. But one thing that I actively try to do is every so often, when I feel like I've identified someone that I think is fantastic inside and out and doesn't have like any toxic tendencies or malicious intent or a repeated history of making their problems my problems, etc., etc. When I feel like I've identified someone special, a gem, a diamond in the rough, I really love being able to get them one-on-one and just go, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I think you're great. I think you stand out in a crowd. I think you light up the room when you walk in. I think that you're funny. I think that your charisma is contagious to others. I think people are better because you're around. And I have found that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this with some deeply seated strategic tactic of like, oh yes, I'm going to win this person over by flattery. I'm saying these things because I genuinely mean them. And I think a lot of people also think that of their friends, but being vulnerable can be scary. They don't like to speak those things out loud sometimes because maybe you've never been that kind of person, whether it be you're worried about rejection or you have a bad history of people taking advantage of you when you are vulnerable. Perhaps you're a guy listening to this and you don't have a comfortable relationship with being vulnerable because of that pressure on us men to, never show emotion. Maybe if that's even applied by your own parents or by other men, where you're constantly in macho town and any bit of weakness is torn to ribbons. Regardless to all of this, I really, really highly suggest going to someone important in your life. And it doesn't have to be the cheesy thing where it's like, tell your loved ones that you love them. I know that that is meaningful. I know that that goes into a little bit of gratitude and being gracious and all of that. But it's deeper than that. It's not just go to your loved ones and tell them that you love them. It's go to the people in your life that you genuinely think are special and then tell them why you think they're so special. And granted, in my recent times of doing this, it has been assisted by the influence of alcohol a little bit. I very much so enjoy amongst a drunken night with my friends, getting a little sappy and telling them that I love them or that they're important to me, or particularly new people in my life that I don't get to, I've never gotten to be too deep or intimate with. And just saying, hey, I know we don't know each other that well, but I think you're awesome. And these are the reasons I think you're awesome. Specifically, like these are the things I notice about you that make me think you're special. And hopefully you notice those things about yourself, and these are aspects of yourself that you can take pride in and that you can find confidence in, and knowing that I'm someone that perhaps doesn't know you that well right now, but I can identify these really great things about you, and so that means most people see these things too. But I have found that there has never been a quicker path to a deep connection with someone than doing this. I've had people ask me, just straight up, like, we both know this person, but they like, and we're cool. Like, I'm cool with that person, but they fucking love you, dude. And I don't know what it is. That's because they don't see what I do when I'm one-on-one with this person. If I really try to make that person feel loved, and I think I can do that without ever directly saying the words "I love you." Now, granted, I'm comfortable with saying that as well. I'll add it to the end of the whole speech I may give them. But I used to, God, I remember when I was like either at the end of high school or fresh out of high school, I used to go through my contacts in my phone before I would go to sleep and randomly pick someone or multiple people if I was feeling extra chatty. And I would just out of nowhere kind of hit them with this little paragraph, sometimes not so little. And I would just be like, "Hey, saw your name pop up, just thinking about you, wanted to know that I think you're great. I miss you if I haven't seen you in a while, or I love the time we've been spending together if we have been seeing each other lately." And just remind them of their best qualities and mean it. Like, if you don't think, and that's maybe perhaps another segue into another topic, but if you're hanging out with people that you're hearing me say this, right? And you're hanging out with people that you think that you couldn't genuinely do this with, perhaps that's a wake-up call to who you've been spending your time with. If you feel like if you were to pull aside some of your closest people in your life and try to do this with them, and you feel like half of it would be bullshit, then that is a red flag. Like, I hate to be the one to tell you on this monologue podcast episode where I'm just speaking at my bedroom wall, but you really should. Two things are wrong here. One of two things, should I say. You either A, do not value yourself enough and you are spending time with people who don't deserve you, or you aren't self-aware enough and you need to look inwards with brutal honesty and identify the areas where maybe you have not really been that upfront with yourself about. Perhaps there are some areas that need some work, and you don't need to beat yourself up about that. I know that I talk about self-improvement a lot on this podcast, and I don't want this to be just a self-improvement podcast. I obviously have had other guests on that we talk about other bullshit or just tell stories or whatnot, and that is the plan moving forward, to be all over the place. But self-improvement is a huge thing. I think it's a huge aspect of my identity and my personality and where I've came from. And so if you're around shitty people, they either A, get along with you because you also are a shitty person right now, temporarily, we can change, or B, you don't value yourself enough to stick up for yourself, to tell these people no, to let these people stop taking advantage of you. Because I have friends, I can think of names and faces right now that I think are great, like pure-hearted people who surround themselves with awful, shitty people. And the reason they do is because they do not value themselves enough. They really think that they deserve to be amongst the scum and villainy of this world, because they get around other people who are very confident or healthy or have a good thing going. And they just have this whole "I am not worthy" mindset. And that doesn't particularly leave a good taste in the mouths of people who do have a good thing going and want to surround themselves with others like that. And it self-sabotages this person's operations. If you get nervous or scared around people who you look up to, admit that to them. Because honestly, it's one of the most charming things you could ever do. If I'm around someone and I am having a good day, right? I feel extra charismatic, I feel extra confident, and we're beep bopping around town together, and this person admits like, hey, I want to embody some of the things that you do, but I am just so scared, or I'm so nervous. Just acknowledging that is such a huge point. And that establishes, like I was talking about earlier, this level of vulnerability with someone. The only thing that encourages vulnerability in a relationship is vulnerability. And someone has to be the first mover. Someone has to be the bigger person. And my personal opinion in life is you should always be striving to be the bigger person in scenarios because nobody else is. And so your life will just consistently be better because there's either a situation where someone is the bigger person or neither people want to be the bigger person. And the situations where neither person is actively pursuing that are the worst situations to be in. Nothing is getting better and no one is going to try to make it better. And so I know I have people who have voiced to me the moans and groans of why do I always have to be the bigger person? And it is because you should tell yourself that you don't have any other choice because your life is objectively better when you do this. And so I know I'm kind of all over the place. I'm very tired. So if I kind of just roll off into another topic, bear with me a little bit. I'm going to try to connect to the central theme, but who knows where we take this. Anyway, side tangent off, rolling it back in a little bit. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. And if you want to have a plethora of relationships in your life where you are happy and fulfilled and vulnerable, expect yourself 9 times out of 10 to be the person to initiate that vulnerability. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the more comfortable you feel when you do it. And therefore, the more often you are more likely to do it in the future. And so I don't know if you're listening to this right now, you faceless listener, I love you. And if you are thinking of someone actively right now when you hear me speak about this, I would encourage you, even if it's a text message, just hit them up and be like, hey, I admire you. I think you're phenomenal. And even if perhaps there's only a couple things about this person that you really, really feel like is amazing about them, because, not every single person is amazing in every single facet. There are a lot of just very average people, but every average person has at least 1 to 2 amazing things about them. And so even if it's not that many things, if you can just be honest about the couple things that you think are great about that person, just watch what it does. Watch what it does for them. Watch what it does with how they treat you moving forward. Watch what it does for your guys' dynamic. And it just, I don't know, it incites a level of trust with that person that genuinely builds like bedrock for a lifelong sustainable friendship. Anyone who knows me, I have my fucking boys. I have Joel, Spring, Dylan, Dalton, and a handful of others in my life that are like my dogs. I can rely on them. And that's not counting like my family. And the only reason that I have maintained such beautifully strong relationships with these guys is because I have repeatedly in the past had very intimate, vulnerable moments with them where I tell them, you're one of the best fucking people I've ever met in my life. When you walk in a room, you're amazing. People eat you up. You're hilarious. You're brilliant, just sharp as a tack. One of the smartest people I've ever met. As soon as the room spotlight is on you, you make everyone laugh. You make everyone feel welcome. And these aren't qualities to scoff at. These aren't things that, everyone's nice or everyone's kind of funny. Like, no. Identify the special cases and really harp on them because you can be honest. Do not tell them that they're funny if they're not funny. But if they are really fucking smart, then tell them they're smart. Don't tell them that they're social or charismatic if they're not. If they're, that introverted, to themselves, quieter, shyer personality, don't lie to them. Tell them that you think that they are super charming and so easy to get along with, and you feel so seen when you're with them. There's always something that you can find that's honest. But like I was saying, I have built these moments with my friends. I have had times where I think I have held each one of my boys, and they have cried to me about something. And a good chunk of them have also held me as I have cried. Those moments matter, dude. Vulnerability is not weakness. I know that a lot of guys have that mixed up because they've never really dove into the topic, or they've never really thought too much about it. Perhaps your father figure, or lack thereof, had a improper relationship with vulnerability, and so that was just what you were passed down with. But women on average, I've noticed, tend to be a little bit better about it. But I also might have a biased experience because I try to invite vulnerability. All that being said, those moments matter with those people, because I can also say that with a lot of my really great friends, I have had some of the most difficult and hard to swallow conversations ever. We have had moments where the average friendship would have ended. Neither of us would have wanted to put in the extra effort. It's just not worth it. Oh, I'm going to just pretend like I know their shoes and say, well, if they're really my friend, they would have never done that. And then I'll just move on and abandon the friendship. Those are the pivotal moments where it matters the most, that you need to lock in that friendship. You need to go to them and fucking apologize if you're the one who fucked up. Or you need to go to them and confront them about their fuck up if they hurt you. But if they hurt you and you're not talking to them about it because you don't want to be confrontational and you would rather let the friendship die, you are not cut out for lifelong friendships. And you need to realize that now, because you will be entirely disappointed as you consistently go about your life with no real solid connections, because you never wanted to be vulnerable. You never wanted to have the hard conversation. You never wanted things to get a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm not trying to, I know some of you may feel like this is a personal attack. Some of you are like, I'm fine. I'm good at this. You're preaching to the choir. But I know some of you may feel personally like I'm pointing right at you. None of these traits or these bad habits per se are permanent. You have every opportunity to take that first step at any age in your life whenever you choose to do so. But do it. I cannot explain enough how one difficult conversation with one of your best friends every couple years maybe does nothing but further strengthens the trust of that relationship after the fact. And I've had friendships where people just disappear, and I'll never know, right? They have their reasons. They have their personal beliefs, and they never communicated them to me. And I can't be bitter about that, because they're not the type of friend, or should I say, they're not the type of person who is cut out for lifelong friendships. And I don't know. I think these are some of the most important things in life. I was just telling Dylan this the other day, so if he listens to this episode, he will hear me say the quote again. But there was a really beautiful quote I saw of some wilderness man, some dude who set off to live on his own and survive off the land in the woods, grow a beard, the beautiful male urge that every guy has in their youth. He went and did it. And someone had posted a quote from him that said something along the lines of, happiness is worth nothing if it is not shared. Now, I saw this on Twitter, so who knows if this is a real quote from him? Who knows if he ever said that? This could have been Robert Frost for all I know. But all I know is that that quote speaks directly to my most core values in life. And only as I've grown older, does it just ring more true. Excuse me, need a little water. as a lot of you know, I've lived in the Antelope Valley for my whole life. And as a lot of you know, the Antelope Valley is consistently shat on by people who live in the Antelope Valley. And the longer I've lived here, the less I have hated it. And that's not to say that I have grown content in a sense that I've given up on dreams or aspirations. I do think if everything that I set out for in life happens, I will move out of here. But it has been nice in the meantime to not hate it. And the thing that makes me not hate it is not that the AV has changed at all. Like, oh, congrats, we're getting the occasional new building here, the occasional new food spot here. Like, that stuff's all fine and dandy. It entirely has to do with the people that I get to spend my time with out here. I have some of my best friends who I live with. I have some of my other like closest friends who I see regularly, if not weekly. I have the privilege of working with some fantastic people. And then on top of that, I consistently run into old friends that I just love to death. And it is just always such a joy to see them. And then I get to run into new people who I think are great and I want to spend more time with, and I want to take pictures with, and I want to create memories with, and I want them to be in my reel that I make at the end of the year with a big recap. And when I get to see someone that I love every day, even if I don't know who it's going to be, and I get to laugh alongside them, it makes living in the Antelope Valley great. And I think that that can be said about anywhere that you live, because it's really not about where you live. It's about who you live with. And these sort of thoughts and these sort of things have just kind of been circling in my head lately. And it's why I was set out when I first hit record here to talk about relationships and friendships. Because I think that a lot of people that I have crossed paths with are relationship deprived. They have perhaps their lover or their spouse, maybe an old best friend that they'd never really see anymore, and that's about it. And I think that that is a little sad, because I think that unless you are in very specific niche circumstances, there's always room in your life, even if you have a family and kids, for more people that you love. It's just a matter of prioritizing it, and it's just a matter of communicating a level of vulnerability with these people so that they love you back and that they stick around. So let's say we're going to come up with a hypothetical, and I hope that it applies to at least one person listening. Let's say you have a wife or a husband, and you have a kid. And if it's not a wife or a husband, we'll say boyfriend or girlfriend. But you have some obligations, right? You're in a relationship and you have a child. Both of those things are already beautiful. You're already doing well as long as you're happy. But let's say you crave those intimate relationships as a guy that you get with other dudes, that male bonding, or as a woman where you're with other women and you really finally feel seen because you're not with your boys, as in like your kids or like your husband. Those things are super important. I think you should pursue them. I think that you should find something that you have an interest in. You wanted to join a book club, or you like 3D printing, or you really enjoy a niche kind of food or some sort of hobby. You want to join a run club, whatever it may be. Do those things. Even if it is one day a week, give yourself one day a week to surround yourself with others who share your interests and passions. Me and Dylan go to the fucking boulevard. Like, we don't as much anymore because we're in and out of it. But we used to go to the boulevard like once a month minimum and play Pokemon Go with a bunch of strangers who would also show up on Community Day and play Pokemon Go with us. And we would, just by showing up once a month, we would actively start seeing familiar faces and people who we'd say hello to. Or we'd stop at the gelato shop and we'd get ice cream because we're already being children. Why not up the ante? We might as well get the little fucking hats with the propeller on top. And we'd see the gelato guy, and he'd be like, "Hey guys, catching Pokemon again?" And our fucking grown asses would be like, "You bet, sir." But just that sense of community and that sense of people, it just is this immeasurable amount of value and fulfillment. And this is something like trivial. I mean, we're playing a fucking in-app phone video game that we kind of see some people sometimes. If you actively go join something like a boxing club or a book club, you will start being around these people. And all it takes is, after going for a little bit, identifying the one person that you like the most and then pulling them aside, whether that means like in the moment at the end of your workout that you see them at, or at the end of whatever group meeting that you're with, or inviting them out to lunch or a drink or whatever, as long as it comes off the right way and platonically. And then in that moment, just being like, "Hey, I know you don't really know me, but I just think you are the best thing since sliced bread. I think you are the shit. And I really want you to know that." And then maybe give them a couple things. Like, I think that when you speak, you add so much. And I think that your laugh is so contagious. And I just really appreciate when I get to spend time with you. You have just made a friend. As long as this person is somewhat normal and knows how to process emotions, and you haven't found the Christian Bale American Psycho in your book club, then you have just made a friend. And now you get to explore who that person is a little bit more. As each time you hang out, you get to know them better and be a little bit more vulnerable. Next thing you know, they're inviting you over for dinner with their family, or to their kid's birthday party, or, "Oh, we're thinking about doing a trip up to San Francisco and we want you to come along." Stuff like that. And I think that, sorry, my headphones just died on me. But I genuinely think it's that easy. I really do. I think it takes being the bigger person, because no one wants to be vulnerable first. So you kind of have to work out that muscle and get a little bit better at it. And then it also takes just making sure that you are not the type of person to make your problems other people's problems. I think everyone should be given the grace and the mercy to fuck up sometimes. You know, we're not perfect. We're human beings. And I think we should echo that forever as long as we're here. That everyone is a little imperfect and is going to fuck up. But if you're the type of person where you are consistently finding yourself apologizing for shit that you know you fucked up, you should really, really look at whether or not you are actually changing, or if you're just apologizing. Because you are self-sabotaging friendships. And this is a necessary step to overcome in order to get yourself to a place where then you can actively start like nurturing real loving bonds with people. So I don't know. I never think that a little self-digging, a little introspection is a bad thing. Yes, I think there is too much. I think there's moderation to be found everywhere. But a little introspection, a little introspection goes a long way. And I also, I don't know, if we're going to kind of go a little bit on the topic of making sure that you're calibrated and you're good to be able to sustain really good friendships with people, go to therapy, man. Go to therapy. And I know you're thinking, well, not me, the people I know. Like, no, you too. Go to therapy. A lot of people do not know, but I went to therapy very briefly for like, God. I tried using one of those services that you get like an Instagram ad for, and I actually got a therapist, and we had a few sessions, and I talked to them. The service sucked, and the therapist ended up dropping out of the entire program, so it was a bit of a thing. But even in my brief encounters, she straight up told me, she was like, you don't really need therapy. You don't really have any particular things that you haven't clearly already worked out. She's like, you need a life coach. Like, if you have goals you want to achieve, you need to find a life coach, which I've kind of been thinking about looking into lately. But even going to therapy and hearing a therapist say, hey, you're good. that alone lets you rest easy a little bit and lets you move forward and go, okay, like, we're able to know that when we do introspection, we're doing a good job. And I also don't think therapy should be this permanent practice. I think therapy is a form of healing, and you should stop when you're healed. I know that there are cases of people who are like chronically going to therapy, and you run into the risk of kind of like accidentally over diagnosing yourself, starting to focus on nitpicky things or constantly looking for the next issue with yourself, when in reality maybe you would have been better off if you had stopped like 4 months ago. But you won't know until you try. And I know that it can be expensive, but even doing it for like 2 to 3 months, if you're willing to bite the bullet on a certain check, or making, like, if you have a full-time job and benefits, there are certain programs where some of your healthcare providers will allow for like one session a month with a therapist that they cover. And that alone, it's great. If you take notes, if you do a little journaling, that will help as well. And then you can present this person with these things. But most of these professionally trained people can probably figure out what you got going wrong with within the first 3 sessions. And if that is all you need to like identify what you need to work on, and then you can go from there, I genuinely recommend it. Because if you're getting a professional saying it, you can be pretty confident that you know what the next steps to work on are. All that being said, I think that at the end of the day, I don't want to make this a very long episode, but I really think the moral of this story is go to those that you care about. Go to those that you love, and even if it takes a little alcohol because you need a little liquid courage, tell them why you stick around. Tell them you need to talk to them as if a job reference called asking about them. Oh, this is so-and-so Incorporated asking about Jonathan and his character. Who is he? What is he like? Everything that you would spout off right there within honest means. I know we like to lay it on a little thick. Maybe be like, they've never done anything wrong. But if you did need to lie, and you could just be honest, how you would talk to that job recruiter is exactly how you should be talking to your friend. Because if you mean those things and you genuinely see them that way, they deserve to hear that. You have no idea what they could be struggling with right now. A lot of people suffer in silence, especially with confidence issues and with self-esteem. It's the hardest thing to open up about. So if you could, out of the blue, go to them and just help them feel a little better about themselves, there are so many other benefits outside of just a feel-good in the moment thing that just extrapolate out from there. Probably not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, I think there's a lot to say, and yet also I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit. But I definitely, and I don't know, maybe I'll do a few more minutes because I was aiming for this to be around 45 minutes, and I like where this is going, but we'll do a little bit on cutting out toxic people, because this really only applies if you have good people in your life. If you don't have good people in your life, and that's just because you don't value yourself well enough and you need to start cutting people out. Here's the thing, man. I have a golden rule that I live by. I've repeated it in the past. My apologies if you've heard it before. But you need to look at people this way, and this is exactly how you filter out the good from the bad, and those who are going to stick around, and those who care about you, and those who don't. Mind my water breaks. My old saying that I'm sure I didn't come up with myself, I just could never tell you where I got it from, is when looking at someone and worrying if they are going to judge you for being yourself, my adage is, if they matter, they won't mind. And if they mind, then they don't matter. And once I applied that line of thinking to every social encounter where I was being authentic, it has been the easiest way to filter out people who have issues and should not be wasting my time versus those who enrich my life. And just in case there's anyone that perhaps that little Dr. Seuss wording was a bit confusing, what I'm essentially getting at is, if you're going to be yourself and someone's going to judge you for that, then that is not someone that you would even want to win over. But if you're going to be yourself around those who matter to you, then they shouldn't be bothered. They shouldn't be judging. They shouldn't mind. There are people who will not like you. There are people who, the more they listen to this podcast, they're going to realize that they don't like me, or they don't like some of the opinions that I have. One of these days, I eventually doing kind of like a deep dive politics episode. You guys are really going to learn about what I think. And everything that I believe is with good intention, but it might not rub you the right way. And the hard truth of life is, if you're winning over every single person that you ever encounter, you're doing something wrong. You're not standing for anything. You have no values or principles, because just standing on certain values and principles 10 toes down is going to make you enemies with people who are either misguided or just see the world differently. And so walking around with this mindset has helped me value myself and others that I'm with. I know it is so scary to cut out toxic people, because sometimes that even applies to family. I personally am not against cutting off family if they are awful. I know there are certain people who hold the principle of their blood, they're my sibling, or they're my parent, or they're my XYZ, and I will always love them. But I personally believe that if one of my family members did me as dirty as I know some of my friends have been done by family, I would just wrap it up, man. I would be like, you need to figure it out. And don't get me wrong, you're allowed to leave the door open. There are people that I was friends with that I have cut out of my life because they are problematic. But if they go to therapy or change the parts of themselves that are actively holding back how great they could be, and then they want to reapproach and enter my life, obviously, at first I'll have some trust issues believing that this is actually permanent change. But if that rears its face and that's how they are now, they are welcome back into my life. Like, my standard for who I hang out with actually doesn't apply to any particular person. It just applies to a certain set of like abstract standards. And if you don't meet those, and I don't want to spend time with you, but you care about me and want to come back into my life, and then if you can meet those standards, then by all means. And I know this may come off as a little arrogant, like as I'm saying, and I'm like, oh, I hope that doesn't sound like too like self-righteous or entitled, but I don't know. I value my time. I value myself. And so I have a certain standard. And quite frankly, I only want to be around other people who are the same way as me. If I'm around someone who thinks like I do, and they're like, you need to hit a certain standard for us to be friends, then the fact that we're friends shows that I'm doing something right, that I am hitting their standard, that I am up to par in their eyes. And if there's someone that I admire or look up to or really love, then that is a really good feeling to know that you have won over someone who doesn't care for most people to win them over. So I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to boil down. It is such a two-way street. I want to kind of focus solely on talking about the relationships with other people and what it means to pour yourself into them. But you can't have that conversation without also talking about the exact opposite side of the same coin, which is looking into yourself and making sure that you're good. I do not think that you should have relationships with people without conditions. I know, like, this was something, if you listen to the episode with Chloe, it talked about unconditional love, and the fact that I don't believe in that, because any standard that you set, any standard, even if it's like, I hope they don't beat me, that is a condition, and your love is no longer unconditional. I think that, I don't know, it's a whole other side tangent, but I think like certain improper interpretations of Abrahamic religions have allowed people to believe that unconditional love is a standard they should set for their life, and it's not. It leaves you open to abuse. And so if you feel like you are pouring a unconditional love into someone and you're not getting that back, don't do that. Value yourself more. It's okay. You're not a bad person for telling people to treat you with respect. But I don't know, guys. I don't know. I made it to the 45-minute mark that I was aiming for. I do briefly want to say, and I thought about saying this in the intro, but I'll say it here because I'll be talking to the people who have listened to the podcast all the way through. We surpassed in total 750 downloads the other day, which I thought was pretty cool. Numbers are kind of like, you know, they're fun to look at and stuff, but they're not really that relevant in the grand scheme of things. It's not why I do this, but it's just a number that I didn't think I'd see anytime soon. And the fact that we're coming up on 1,000 listens, 1,000 different downloads of all the episodes is really cool. I appreciate everyone and all of you guys. You know what? Yeah, let's do this. We'll do the friendship thing that I was talking about right now. Let's let's do a little vulnerability. I appreciate every single one of you guys that spends time with me on these episodes. I know that you guys have hit me up and told me that it kind of feels like we're hanging out or that you're a part of the conversation, and I absolutely love that. A good chunk of why I did this was for me, but I want to say about an equal chunk was also doing it so I could hear those things from people, you know, so that I could know that I was making someone's day better. I had someone who had a really, really fucking bad day at work tell me that they listened on their drive home and it made them feel better and it made them feel less alone. And I'm like tearing up at the thought. I'm like, oh my God, the fact that I could do that for someone, I think that's phenomenal. So I pay attention to, you know, the people who are actively engaging with me. And if you're just a silent listener who really doesn't hit me up or tell me, like, I would love for you to show your face every now and then so I can tell you that I'm so appreciative and I thank you so much for being a part of this. But if you prefer to stay in the shadows, you absolutely can. And this will be my way of speaking to you. Thank you so much. It really just, it's a good feeling. And I am constantly balancing back and forth, trying to figure out how I want this to simultaneously be meaningful and fulfilling and also entertaining and lighthearted. I know that not every episode is like this one. I know that I definitely crave more of the brain rotten AI episodes like I had with Dylan, where we can just fuck off and crack up and have a good time. Because I don't want to just make you guys have some goofy ass smile at your car radio while you're listening to me be all sappy. I also want to make you guys laugh. I also want to have some memorable, funny moments that you can look back on, or I can point out to people. I don't know. But all that being said, I really appreciate you guys, and you should pass that appreciation on to the people in your life who actively make it better. The people in your life that if they were gone, there would be a hole. And it doesn't have to be weird. I know being vulnerable is a really hard thing and it's scary and you're really worried about embarrassing yourself. Do it anyway. Embarrass yourself, even if that's what it takes. If you're scared, do it scared. If you're worried, do it worried. But just do it and watch that it was worth it the whole time. So I feel my eyelids getting heavy, and I feel my brain slowing down. So we're going to call it here. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I will be back next week, I believe, with a guest. I don't know who yet. I usually don't even know until the day I start recording, but we'll be back. We'll do some back and forth, have some good hangs, and hopefully provide you guys continuously with that same exact feeling that I have been shooting for, that hopefully you guys get every time that you come back and click on these episodes. So, thank you so much. This was episode 10. Woo woo. And this is Unserious University. I am your host, Tub, or K-Tub for long, instead of for short. Oh, God, I'm getting delusional. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Catch you on the next one. Till next time, peace out.